Hey everybody, it is
Good evening.
the Pantheon Plus U2, following up on the tank class, Parting the Veil. How are you guys tonight? Welcome to the show, Sarah.
Thank you. I think our cameras are frozen, at least they are for me, and we caught more mid-chew as an excellent
Oh yeah, look at that.
freeze frame.
Yep.
Perfect. I'm
So
eating a cookie.
I'm gonna be real with y'all. Before the stream, everything broke. So it's gonna be one of those parting the veils with all the technical issues and stuff like that.
See if I can
So-
time it good again.
Yep, basically broke everything. We're gonna
OBS
try to
is
deal with
so
it.
snarky.
Might be some cases of having our co-hosts freeze or just go into a gray
Correct.
screen, but I know you guys can deal with it. It's been happening for a long time, and I thought I had a fix,
Oh, yeah.
but alas. Welcome to streaming. I'm not a professional like Drac, so
Yeah, good evening. How's
yeah.
everybody doing out there? I expected an answer from the chat.
I'm trying to keep an eye
audibly.
out. Yeah, I'm trying to keep an eye out. Yeah, let me know like how you guys are feeling about that stream. It was a long one, really long.
I mean,
Holy moly.
I will interject and say that that's the informative stream I've been waiting for. Why was my healer stream not that informative? What the heck? Like, I want a redo on the healer stream. Or at least whenever they talk about rangers, if that stream is that informative, I'll be happy. But I feel like the healer stream was like, I don't know, not even like the Cliff's Notes version, and the tank stream was like, here's my encyclopedia. Let us read every page. Like
Mhm.
that's how I felt.
Yeah,
Not jaded.
I totally understand.
Says the healer stream didn't have a wall of shirtless men. Fair.
Good point, Sav. Good point.
And neither will this stream have a wall of shirtless men. So sorry.
I mean, we could change that, but we won't.
You guys can change that, and I'll just be your not bookend, whatever the opposite of a bookend is.
Yeah. Let's keep our shirts on. I'll keep our shirts.
Well, just remind everybody how this show works. If you're here for the first time or just need a little bit of a brain jog, you come onto the Pantheon Plus Discord. The link is pinned in the chat right now. And you pop into the green room, and at semi-random, we'll pull people into the live channel here, and you can get your thoughts in about how you felt the stream went, et cetera, et cetera. And we might ask you some questions, or you could ask us questions. It's very, very chill little after show we've got going on here. But I've got a ton of notes, and I know as soon as I switch to my notes, these guys are going to disappear, so I apologize for that. But it looks like we've got one person in the green room right now. I'll give him a little bit of time to collect his thoughts, because I'm sure they're good thoughts. But I guess I may as well ask. Let's just pick like one thing to highlight from each of you guys before we get into the callers, okay? So let's start with Sarah. So out of everything tank wise, and I know you're Ranger main and all, but what was your highlight? Whether it's like a new thing or an old thing.
So yeah, I'm like least interested in tanks. They're just not my cup of tea. But I have been playing a healer for a bit lately, so it was funny every time they would talk about a healer thing. I was thinking about how that would affect me, or a tank thing. I was thinking about how that would affect me if I was healing them. So that was a fun exercise. But my my favorite notes that I have from the stream are like just Joppa quotes. So like
naturally.
The Dire Lord being the selfish tank, I think that is an excellent like summary of that class. I also I hadn't heard before the differences in like how they were going to hold aggro, so I really liked hearing that. Like the Dire Lord was sustained single threat aggro. I thought that was really interesting. The Paladin.
Well,
he said
we could leave some for the listeners.
Sorry.
He said one thing.
It's all good.
Who's got one thing?
You're fitting right in because
We all do it.
ramble.
Yeah, we all do it.
That was
Fitting
one
right
thing.
in.
Okay, fine. Paladin, most traditional tanking experience. Warrior. What did he say?
Oh,
about
you're
the
doing
warrior?
one per class.
One for
Okay,
each
that's
one.
fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I'll
That's what I was
allow it.
going for. I mean, and obviously, I think everybody was excited to have the banners. What's that word? They're real. We know that they're real now. Confirmed. Banners were
Yeah.
confirmed, and I also loved the detail that he went into for them. So yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah, that was good. That's totally fair. I didn't get that you were going for each class. That actually makes a lot of sense. All right, what about you?
Yep.
Mr. ManOfRohan?
I liked hearing, and I have a ton of notes as well, but I liked hearing the kind of differentiating things about each one. For instance, Direlord has the highest health pool. That was interesting.
I agree. That was like the first note I put down too.
Right, and then and just understanding that paladins have the most effective threat holding, AE threat holding. He said most effective, so I don't know if that was just a superlative or if that was actually a differentiation.
It was reiterated a few times, so I think he means it.
Right, and then the simplification of the warrior. So, and taking away, not taking away, but changing resilience to be just a natural mitigation, so that they could handle the bossing everyone around part that warriors like to do. So,
is that what they like?
Yes. Yeah. No, I thought I was both the classes that we haven't heard that much about in a long time, Paladin and Warrior. It was a very fun to hear all of that tonight. So
I couldn't agree more.
That's it.
That was a great list. I think my favorite being out of the whole thing was just that Joppa LARPed a little bit. I mean,
right.
I didn't know what LARP meant. That was very embarrassing.
Oh,
considering I've been LARPing since I was in single digit age, whatever.
Oh no, this is really going out into the woods and making weapons and throwing things at each other.
There you go.
That's what LARPing is. Yeah.
Also known as.
I mean, I've been doing that longer than I've been LARPing in the digital world. So whatever.
Right. I was like, I was a kid. I think
right.
That qualifies
right.
too.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think it's time for our now regular Mr. C. So just giving you a heads up here before I pop you in. And then I think that's good enough, right? Let's surprise him. Mr. C. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing pretty well.
Evening.
I figured.
Hey, Mr. C.
Are you a tank player, Mr. C?
I have played the tank here and there. I've probably played more tank than I have healer. That's just the kind of person that I am.
Okay. Any particular thoughts? Or should I just start like throwing questions at you?
Well, I have a question for you. How much of this was on the website?
Well, a decent amount, but not all. There were definitely some new nuggets, highlighted things, and like ManOfRohan mentioned, the resilience change. It was resilience, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Just to make it a little like less micromanagey, a few specifics about the banners that aren't actually listed on the website. So there was a lot more. It was like taking what was on the website and putting meat on it. And so, yeah, this was very successful in that sense.
Yeah, I feel like out of all the information we got, Warrior seemed to stood out the most. It was really exciting to hear about, like, when you have 3 mobs, you can put a banner down and you'll be doing faster attacks and more damage until there's not 3 mobs, and then it'll revert back to normal, which is really interesting because whenever you have 3 ads, that's exactly the mindset that you have. Get rid of these now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a interesting. I mean, that is one banner example, and Joppa made it clear there's going to be a lot of banners, right? Which begs the question, what do you keep on your bar? Like, Ideally, I would say, at least as we've seen in the game right now, the best way to manage ads is to not get them. So
Essence says the best CC is death.
that's exactly. And so I do wonder if this marks a bit of a direction thing. If I don't know, maybe later on, if the devs expect us to start taking on 3 mobs at a time. A little crazy.
It seems
Well,
like that's sorry, but that's
go ahead.
like kind of the intention, because he kind of brought up near the end about, okay, we're going to put a banner down that's going to make the paladin do more damage against something, and then he's going to do a lot of AoE stuff and hit a lot of stuff. So it sounds like maybe it will be kind of leaning towards that EQ thing where we just pull trains and then we kill them. We'll see.
You think it'll turn into that?
Maybe not like EQ trains, but maybe like, hey, you brought one, bring 2 more.
Okay. I mean, that would definitely make things exciting, right? Do you guys?
I mean, people will make it exciting.
Do you guys like the more mobs potential? You guys being...
Well, it's right on the edge of chaos, and so then that does make it fun, you know. So I think you're right, Mr. C, when you're saying 3 is when you get there, you just want to do whatever you can for it to not get worse.
Well, and
is
I
what
mean,
I was thinking.
I also like realistically, how often do you actually get a single bull? You often get multiples, so unless maybe that's just when I'm pulling. Anyway, it's nice to have. It's nice to have a way to handle that other than just tank and spank, but actually have some tactics involved.
Yeah. Hey, Mr. C, remind me of what your main class is. Was it? I mean, Bard, but realistically.
Ouch.
Listen, I'm a bard main. I'm used to this.
It's just because Red's not here. I can't talk bad about Necro. So
me and Red, we're both brothers on a war-torn nation.
It's true. But the reason I say not Bard though is more because we don't have any info about it. But was your other class Enchanter? Was that it?
Yeah, I've probably played, like I said in the last partying or plus U2, I said my spreadsheet is typically Bard if they're not a healer, and then if not Bard, then Enchanter, and if not Enchanter, Rogue.
Okay, well, so
it's an interesting mix of class types there.
Yeah, I mean, in today's MMOs,
as Mr. C himself.
Very true. I'm very eclectic.
So my question would be, as Enchanter, let's say, does anything stand out about how, potential of how things are going to play out for you as your potential main class? What tank do you want to group with?
You know what? I haven't put a lot of thought into that. That's a pretty good question.
You're a regular now, so I get to put you on the spots.
Yep.
I'll
take 10 classes for 1,000.
Well, maybe I'll pass it to either one of my co-hosts. What as your main class? What is your preferred tank?
I mean,
I need the
I
Jeopardy
think the warrior
music,
sounds the most interesting.
As a ranger,
as an objective bystander who won't play a tank, I think the warrior sounds the most interesting. As a healer too, like if I play a druid, I think the warrior sounds super fun to hang with.
Okay. Mr. Rohan?
Well, you're bringing up a great question, because if I'm a cleric, and that's my dwarf cleric is what one of my mains. I mean, I'm gonna play them all. Just let's be real about it. I'm gonna play.
We already do that.
But the paladin is just like a stronger, tankier me, Okay. And so I don't know if I want a paladin necessarily. I mean, I'd play with a paladin. We're gonna hopefully there's some synergistic things that are happening in there between us. Maybe the against maybe we work off each other for anything against that. What do they have? The list of undead and corrupted and profane.
Right. There's a little bit
know.
of aspect of target seeking now. Right? If you have groups for it, at least.
Right. So I think if there are some things that kind of spin up into and multiply in that way, I think that'd be really good. But just trying to keep things separate, and warrior probably would be, especially with the banners that could be available in the buffs, and then I get free heals too, because if you're mitigating more damage, then I'm getting some free heals from the warrior.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So a little easier to heal, a little easier to manage.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Have you put some thought into your answer?
Everything
hinges on it.
Oh, everything hinges on it. So Dagny brings up a good point. We don't know everything about the enchanter, and also I'll also throw this out. We don't know which classes or which tank classes are going to use mana, if any of them.
If all of them. Or, well, I guess we already know that the Dire Lord doesn't, right? But
yeah.
That's
but like a tank class that has mana, they're going to get a lot out of my mana regen. And they're going to pull a lot more. Just thinking obtusely, probably maybe the paladin, because they're just the most sword and board. They can just pull people to them.
Okay.
Probably the best like short-term threat, because typically when Mez breaks, it's going to go directly to me. So I need someone who's like, all right, come back here.
Can cover you a little bit extra besides the healer.
But I mean, on that same note, I was probably the least excited about Paladin after the stream. It was just kind of like, yeah, they're sword and board, they have heals, and they do a lot of damage against undead. That's it. Meanwhile, Warrior's like, oh, they got all these cool banners. They do flips. They do cool tricks. They give people cookies.
That's really interesting. Especially because I ended up taking a lot of notes on the Paladin. Personally, I would say I'm still most excited about the Warrior, but I actually had a little bit of interest popping up just around the Paladin, especially that, as Joppa put it, like the longest duration stun, and you know, some of these really like big. It's kind of like, or at least how I'm thinking of it, is their reckoning stuff is kind of like a lay of hands that does different stuff. It sounds like they're really about these big, impactful, kind of fight-changing things. But we'll see if that plays out for more. But the aspect I get. Anything else, Mr. C?
I'm sure you were pretty happy about all of the lore that we got during that stream about Terminus, and I guess a lot of the player races being aliens, I believe, or something like that.
Whoa. What part of the stream did I miss?
Apparently the biggest part of the stream.
Oh, maybe I did. I was fiddling with, the setup quite a bit during the stream. If you can't tell, I'm not bringing up my notes, so trying to lean on all you guys.
Well, and they make friends with boys, and they ride in bikes and eat Reese's Pieces.
What stream were you guys
like
watching?
Other aliens?
I know. I'm out of it. I think it almost feels like we're
talking about a different alien. I mean, that's what I heard. I heard.
Well, did he say? I don't remember if he said alien, but he's definitely talking about the convergence of the races as they got onto Terminus. That they came from other planets or other areas.
And you could say that, all the races are technically aliens to Terminus. I mean, it makes sense.
Listen, if you say other planets, I'm going to say they are aliens, okay?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, something he didn't say, actually, he kind of danced around it. He didn't say, the native peoples. He kept almost saying it. So I'm thinking, like, what kind of, a sentient folks are there, and it just got me thinking about.
I would
that. There
love to
obviously were.
answer that, because there
Yep.
are examples of sentient creatures of Terminus, and I'm a little bit too frazzled, I think, to to pull them out of my hat. If only Theric was here. But yeah.
Right.
Last thoughts, Mr. C?
So they talked about the shield wall of multiple warriors.
Yeah.
Did I hear that correctly?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So that sounds pretty interesting, because more normally for a lot of raids and stuff like that, you'd be like, okay, this guy's the main tank and that's all, and everyone else is going to be in a little party, but you might have just, okay, this is the warrior group. At this point during this boss fight, they're going to turn to the wall and we're going to have to get behind them.
Well, there was a few little tidbits there. So the shield wall has been like kind of a thing they've thrown out before that would, was one of the things I was kind of waiting to hear a little bit more about. And what came out of that was less specifics about shield wall and more specifics about their like philosophy on combat. Joppa kept bringing up like preparing for these really just savage hits of damage, which the warrior is kind of specialized to deal with those kind of spikes in a sense, especially like physical damage. And the shield wall is kind of like an extension of that, perhaps towards the raid end of things, where, maybe there is a huge attack that is nigh unsurvivable unless you're behind the shield wall. We'll see how that plays out, because that's the kind of stuff that I know a lot of people might be on the fence about, be like, well, what if we don't have 2 warriors or potentially 3 warriors, I think is what was mentioned.
Then you're screwed.
Or you just don't have a warrior.
I guess
could be problematic.
You have all your paladins try to lay hands at once. I don't, like, what do you... Anyway, that was kind of an interesting, combat philosophy thing that I took out of it, was that it sounds like these big fights are going to expand a lot in the kind of mechanics we deal with.
I wonder what level we'll start seeing that kind of stuff. Obviously,
for sure.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see, that's for sure.
Yep.
Awesome.
Well, want to swap out for Raydale here?
Yeah, we'll swap out.
All right.
Thanks for stopping by, Mr. C.
Yes.
Always a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Folks, stop being shy and come hang out in the green room. This is your one and only chance to chat with guest host. Not judge. I'm not judging anybody.
Oh, no.
Judge and jury.
TV. Oh my god. Guest host.
And executioner. Sarah.
That's right. All right. Well, Raydale's unmuted here. Let's pop him in. It's been a while, so yeah, let's say hi. Hey, Raydale.
Hey.
How's it
going?
Hey there.
Doing great. How are you?
Oh, tired. I was a little late to the stream, so I was catching up a little bit on when you guys first started.
Totally makes sense. Like I said, I missed a good chunk of it, especially the beginning. So there's always another time to watch as well. I think there was actually enough little nuggets in this one that it might warrant a rewatch. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, I came in at 12 minutes, and so I rewatched probably about the starting 6 or 7 minutes when they were talking about the Dire Lord, just to catch up on that part of it.
Yeah. Which I'm glad they recognized that a lot of like the Dire Lord stuff was like catch up, and that probably like they don't want to spend a full like third of the stream, going over Dire Lord stuff again. So
that was one of my complaints about the healer stream. Sorry.
Yeah,
I would have liked to have heard a little more comparison, though. They didn't really go in too much on that. It brought up more concerns than not for me, actually.
Really? Like what?
Well, right now, the Dire Lord's been in game, so all the mitigation and everything's based currently around the Dire Lord, right? When the Warrior and Paladin come in the game, they're going to add a whole another layer of mitigation, so they're going to have to respec either the mobs or the Dire Lord's mitigation values based on the mobs and stuff that are there.
Oh,
So,
so
you
you're
know,
thinking like, if Dire Lords can take physical hits pretty hard now, when the warrior gets in, the warrior's just gonna like, not
it's
take
just
any
gonna,
damage.
well, exactly. And then you also got to look at the paladin too. Both those are plate wearers. Both of them have much higher
Yeah.
mitigation values than the warrior, than the current dire lord. And then my other concern is everyone says that the dire lord is going to be a great for spellcasters. Well, all of their defense abilities with spellcasters are active. It means you have to be prepared to use them.
True.
Where the paladins is native, it's passive. So they're going to have an automatic mitigation towards the undead class, already reducing the mitigation value ability of the dire lord that much more. So I'm hoping they don't become kind of the rangers of EQ, where
Hey, now. Just kidding. Keep going.
I was about to say you got two rangers in chat here.
Well, but I mean, rangers were good DPS, right? But they were supposed to be kind of this druid off tank that they never really became of. They really couldn't take a hit. They really were, you do DPS off in the corner, but you're not a rogue or a monk, so really they weren't considered a DPS class. They're kind of this
awkward thing.
If we need some extra person, and I'm kind of really seeing that right now with the dire lord. Doesn't even sound like they really have a special side ability. I'm hoping it's Feign Death, but...
Well, Dagny just pointed out in chat, and this, probably doesn't cover the whole image, but pointed out, it was noted tonight that the higher health pools, the Dire Lord has the highest health pool of the tanks.
And,
might help.
That's going to help, but if you can't mitigate worth a darn, then it's not going to matter how much health you got. I mean, if a warrior takes 50 points of damage and a dire lord takes 100, that extra health pool is not really going to matter.
I mean, the perception I have of the dire lord is that the dire lord is the DPS tank, so the dire lord is going to burn it down faster than the other two tanks. Like, they have the bleeding, cleaving, siphoning, leeching. Like he said, they're the best DPS tank, so they don't have the mitigative skills, but they do kill it faster.
And I would also kind of underscore the life tapping, because when you have a high health pool, you can potentially take a bigger hit, but their kind of mitigation, so to speak, is through. And you do have a point; it is active, but yeah.
Well, and again, all their abilities are active, so they have to maintain their pool. But I'm hoping that those all balance out well enough. Obviously, I'm speaking for a concern, not as saying that it's going to be a definite, because until they're all three in game,
oh yeah,
and they get everything rebalanced, we're not going to really know anything.
Yeah,
that's
totally.
One thing I keep asking for is I want to see all three of them in there, because I might be speaking out. They may have some heavy chain, because there's supposed to be some heavy chain that is equal mitigation value to some of the plate. It just does it differently.
Well, they did say they kind of tossed out the different versions of the armor a while back. If you didn't hear that, now it is just chain and leather, that kind of a thing.
Sunglayer in chat said that he believes Joppa said Dire Lord Life Tap is stronger than Paladin Heals. Can anybody confirm that?
Yeah, I don't have that in my notes.
Haven't heard that. I've been watching their life taps and stuff, and they're pretty small from what I could see.
Oh man,
I haven't noticed.
They're not finished tuning them yet either, though.
Yeah, and I guess that's your point, is that there's still so much tuning to do, right?
Once they get into game, that's why I'm hoping that this stuff balances out. But the stream actually getting more concerned about the Dire Lord being able to be a viable tank with the other two, because the Paladin can have extra mitigation for undead before their mitigation even starts. The warrior is going to have heck of a lot bonus mitigations with the shields on top of them both being plate wearers, so it's kind of like, oh boy. Yeah.
Well, to that note, what do you think about how, like, Joppa's response to the whole balance issue? Was someone asked about, like, what does the what does the warrior get when the paladin can heal and the dire lord can life tap or whatever, what does the warrior get? And his response just being like, we don't look at it that way.
They have a greater group utility though. With all their flags, and they're going to have much broader amount of flags. They're going to have haste. So again, if you're comparing a warrior with haste, and you have 3 DPS classes, or you can take a dire lord, how much of the haste is that going to add? So they have, beyond their tanking, they have a lot more group aspects. And so if you're looking at who you're going to add to your group to go do something, I love being a selfish tank. Well, I'm going to be a dire lord, right?
I was about to say, I'm starting to get the idea that you're a dire lord main, but
I'm 100% a dire lord main. But I also want to be able to be wanted in a group because they know that I can be a viable tank. So I've got concern until I see all 3 of them in there, and I'd love to see them do a stream where we have all 3 of them in there. It's great. And then the paladin's getting res, like they're saying here.
Yep.
The dire lord or the warriors can knock down walls, and currently we've seen nothing or heard nothing of what the...
He was kind of cagey about the dire lord thing.
Yeah.
And apparently it has something to do with lore, which is even more intriguing, especially the hints at, their blood manipulation and stuff like that, which, we have a lot of references in lore about dire lords with the Rockamel and everything, but it sounds like just the mechanics of that ability might actually spoil some part of their origin, which is interesting.
They're actually bloodbenders.
I'm crossing my fingers that it's going to be something that we're going to enjoy. I'm to be honest, I'm hoping it's Fey Death, because that was one of my favorite skills of the Shadow Knight request. But we'll see where it goes. I'm hoping that they actually have something planned, and it's just something not written that they need to still come up with.
Maybe. We're not going to know until it's out, right?
I am looking forward to seeing Nathan, and he actually gets to play his paladin, because it sounds like they've got a lot that is going to be added with that paladin. It's going to really be pretty neat. Like, the extra mitigation for undead. You guys have been fighting through streams I've seen in that undead fortress. They're also going to have the most damage. They're probably going to even out damage a dire lord when it comes to undead.
Oh yeah, it definitely sounds like it. Definitely.
I'm imagining Nathan in all of his energy now, without having paladin, what it's going to be like. He's going to be like that squirrel on that Over the Hedge movie where it drinks coffee or something, and it just moves faster than the speed of light. It just he's just going to be a madman. I think with his excitement. So I think it'll be good.
He missed the show.
Yeah. On that note, the reason Nathan isn't here is literally just because he had his own program that's running, possibly right now, MMO Tourists. So unfortunately, he couldn't join us on account of that. But I'm also looking forward to his takes on it for sure. For sure.
And then the Warriors can have some pretty great stuff too. That's even as a Dire Lord main, I'm really looking forward to possibly grouping with a Warrior, because I think that some of their flags and stuff could probably be very beneficial to a DPS style tank.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any warrior mains in the chat right now? Just curious.
Yeah, where's Grogu?
Well, you mentioned, Radial, that the Ranger thing, and I always considered Paladin at the same as Ranger in regards to they're not quite a tank because they can heal too, and they aren't. And people choose in EverQuest anyway. They chose Warriors way more than they chose for their groups. People didn't want Paladins, in my experience. Now I know there's lots of Paladin lovers out there. But I'm looking at the things that they presented tonight, and it makes Paladin a lot more interesting to me. I never wanted to be a Paladin. So you're making some great points about, hey, look at all these cool things, and maybe just because it's new, but I think you're right. We're going to see the balancing happen. We're gonna, it's gonna settle down. I think these are all just really really exciting to hear, and they're just going to have to deal with it. That's all.
Well, I'm
As
really
Yeah,
glad.
and
I'm really glad they're not
EQ
trying to balance every class and have everyone be like every single tank that you pick is going to be an equal like playable tank in each situation. Like I'm really glad that that's not what they're doing and that you are going to have variety. Like that's what makes it fun.
Like part of what we're talking about right now is literally the uneasiness of like,
hmm
man, is my class going to take a ton more damage in this situation? And that's kind of the overall theme of it, I guess, is that it's per situation, hopefully more than any other MMO before, because, if the worst comes to worst, right, and the Dire Lord just is the least mitigative out of all the tanks, which, I mean, it does sound like that's the case, but then your group has to go through a dungeon with a ton of casters, suddenly, like, you're the ideal pick, right?
but maybe not, because they're all active, right? So all their abilities require their amount of
I mean,
ability to generate their materials for their bloodletting and stuff like that to really use that ability, and you can only use it so often. So there's going to be quite a bit of areas in there where it's kind of not. I'd like to see some pre-mitigation like the Paladin got
like
for
passive
spells,
stuff.
passive with magic, when it comes to the Dire Lord. Then I would have probably felt a little more comfortable. But knowing that all of the mitigation value with the Dire Lord is all active, this is going to be one of the most active controlled tanks out of the three, it sounds like.
Maybe.
But it's got, to me, a concern in their area. I'm not saying that they should be a great tank when it comes to all aspects. The Paladin and the Warrior are going to take, as a straight up meat shield, probably a little bit better than the Dire Lord. I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
But they're saying that it's going to be the spellcasting tank. Well, I want to know that it's going to do that well in the spellcasting tank, and it's just not dead that they're supposed to, but then not being able to accomplish it because
Did you see
they don't have that
Minus's
extra.
Did you see Minus's comment in the chat? He said, "I think the Dire Lord has the capability to be more continuous as part of their kit, so they life tap and such more often as part of the core mechanics. Paladins, when flex into healing, won't be able to sustain it for a long time, if that makes sense." So, like, I think what he's trying to say is some of the Paladin and Warrior, uh, abilities that they have, like they might sound like they're more OP, but they are able to use them a lot less often. Where it sounds like the Dire Lord's abilities are more of a continuous, shorter cooldown. Like you can use them more often, kind of thing.
And
That's also
that's
part
gonna
of
come
their
into the
role, though,
balancing.
because as it was pointed out, is they are second to none in long-term aggro handling. So that also kind of plays into their kit. Is that maybe Dire Lords are just kind of in their lane when it's a longer fight? I mean,
And that's why I'm not trying to say that they're going to be completely. That's why I say I'm waiting for the in-game bout to see the in-game play.
Yeah.
It's just
Don't
I've
we
got
all?
concern. I'm really hoping and crossing my fingers that my concerns are meaningless.
Yeah, no, they're valid. After hearing the things tonight, I totally get how you're thinking some of those things.
And that's one thing I've been asking for, and I was kind of hoping that they would. I know this was a non-in-game, show live action stream, but I was kind of really hoping that they might show at least one little snip of something like that, where all three of them taking, an undead versus all three of them taking a regular bashing, and all three of them taking a spellcaster.
That'd be super good.
That's a good idea for when that day comes. I mean, I definitely wasn't expecting it for this content, because we know at this point that PTV is a talking, live stream. But that's a great idea for content. Hint, hint, wink, wink.
VR.
Well, it would really show how they tank differently, and just show that they are viable in each. How they are viable in each situation. Because you'd see, okay, yeah, these two are going to definitely tank this better than this in a plain, even perspective. With same armor class or whatever going on. So that way, not armor class, obviously those you're going to have higher, but same grade of weapons at the whatever tier they're going to have. It doesn't have to be great, just so you can see this is how we expect this to work. That
Yeah.
way you can go, oh, cool. When I'm playing, I know that I can at least do decent in this area.
Yeah.
I don't want any of the 3 classes to be the mecca of tanking, like we had in EQ, where every raid you had to have a warrior.
Right. And it sounds like, so the interesting thing on that, actually, here, I'm going to pause just for a second, just to remind our community, hi community, we need to have more than 2 people on the show tonight.
Right? I've been in chat all night. Like, come on, guys.
Get a warrior in here.
Yeah, especially if
I
you're
asked.
a tank main, but really, like, anyone, like, there's so much from this PTD that we haven't even gone over with, or just because, I mean, we're more of like a talk show, and I know there's stuff that you guys have picked out that we haven't talked about yet. So, go ahead, hop on the Discord, jump in the green room, we'll get you in here. I'll be a lot more friendly to you than I am to my regulars, I promise. Anyway,
Sunglare wants to talk. I can see it. Get in here. I'm calling people out.
But I think that's all like really good points and things to kind of consider as we move into not just having one tank in the game. Again, I noticed it was mentioned in the chat, but like I wasn't expecting to get an ETA as much as that like would have been awesome to know. Like, as last we heard was that warriors are kind of like up next, and that seemed like kind of soon, but it hasn't come to pass that way. I think we're all really dying for a new class in general, but both PA testers and people just eagerly awaiting the game are, totally wanting more tanks. And you, Radial, like you brought up a great point on why that is, underscored as important when it comes to just balancing the whole game, not even just tanks, so.
And that was my concern. They're not in the game, so we're not seeing their mitigation values and how they're working. And right now, it's all balanced towards the Dire Lord being tank, and that's going to be a very interesting perspective when they come in, and how that's going to work. And that's why I've got the concern for the Dire Lord. And of course, it's my main, so I'm going to fight for it.
Right.
But then you've got, the other classes that aren't in yet either. The Ranger, bring that around. And since we have a couple Rangers on here, how are they going to be compared to the Monk and Rogue?
We better have some good utility, or I'm going to just flip tables.
Is the Ranger going to have the ability to off tank?
No, that's not what I want. I want to pull. But anyway.
Well, and then I'm going to throw a wrench into the Ranger a little bit. So the Ranger is going to be there. It doesn't sound like it's going to be a ton up front, right? But it's going to have a bow. Is it going to take away from the Wizard? Or is it going to take away from the Monk and Rogue? Are we going to have 2 range people and 2 melee DPS when that comes in?
It gets more and more complex as you add, more classes and stuff. And while that's a big deal, and I don't want to like minimize that, the biggest thing for me right now when we're talking about all these classes and the different things they lean into is I just want to see more encounters that make use of these kind of things, because as we kind of like ventured into with the Dire Lord and the casters, Dire Lord being good versus casters, is like we've seen a little bit of that. But when it comes to the warrior, like having to take these really big kind of alpha damage hits on the physical side, like, I want to see more encounters that warrant these kinds of strategies, right?
Who said it's going to be one warrior taking that damage, though?
Well, there's a lot that goes into the one thing, just as a like personal note that I was really hoping for, because this is a mechanic that I rather enjoy, being a EQ2 person, intercept, being able to take a single hit for another player, at a and mitigate a certain amount of it is like such a cool mechanic, and especially because we have defensive targeting in Pantheon. I'm like, there was a part of me that's like, oh man, like, are we gonna have intercepts? But that would be a totally new thing that we hadn't heard before, and I'll just still keep my fingers crossed that Jabba sees that mechanic. And
That sounds like a monk thing to me.
Yeah, I would say, didn't they actually have a skill that was something like that, where they took a little bit of it?
They talk about Lightful Avenger, and then I mean, granted, this is from Undead, and this is Pally's, and they reduce damage before the normal mitigation, but then they take that damage and they convert it to health. So,
Right.
so I mean, in my thought, that's sort of a taking that damage from the other people, but it's from the whole group, which I think I've heard of several skills that do that, where they kind of repost with something beneficial, like they take on something a class does, and I think it's pretty cool, that kind of a thing. But maybe that's
the
not the one you're
Dire Lord
talking
will
about.
be able to do that with magic damage at some point.
Well, I thought the Paladin was able to do something like that, where they were able to cast and take some of the damage from one of their players.
For undead.
Was it just undead?
Just undead is what he said.
I thought Warrior also had a similar
Well,
skill.
he said undead and undead like entities and whatever.
Yeah. Anything that falls
Profanes.
That's got to be corrupted. and
Profanes,
profane,
corrupteds, undeads, etceteras.
all those
guys.
Yeah, I'm looking.
Maybe
at this.
Dire Lords will be able to do it for magic casters at some point.
Well, I hate to cut you off, Radil, but
Yep.
we finally got someone else. So thanks for showing up on the show again. Like I said,
Yeah, man.
it's been a little while.
Yep, I like to stir
Thanks for
up
coming.
stuff.
It was a good
it's
thing to
great.
stir up.
Yep, love
Great
it.
job.
Keep it up.
Well,
Thanks.
see you next time. I'll just just kidding. You don't have to, but
Yeah,
trying to set
later.
it up right.
Everyone is welcome.
All right. Well, have
Thanks
a
for
good night.
tuning.
All right. So,
I got you another person. It was all me.
and I'm trying to make sure that I don't read this wrong. Moby Tums?
That's what I read.
Okay.
We should have Minus
Oh.
pronounce it. We should bring Minus on just to
Oh.
pronounce the name.
All right. So, looks like you're unmuted and everything, so I'm going to pop you in here. And hi there.
Hey, everybody.
All right, here, let me turn you up.
How are you?
Doing good. Thank you for asking.
Excellent.
Hey, thanks for joining the show. We are actually very nice. Don't let the show trick you.
Oh, yeah. No worries. I've actually been a long time follower. Just been real busy lately, so I haven't been tuning into very many streams.
Well, awesome. Is this
worries.
the first time
Excellent.
you've been on a Plus U?
No, this is not I think this is the third time I've been on a Plus U,
Okay.
but the first time I've been on a Plus U too. So
Hey, well,
Excellent.
Thanks for
Wow.
coming over.
no problem.
You're a brave soul. Brave soul. Well, what have you got for us?
Well, I was telling Asura, I missed
But
like
Sarah,
Sarah. My
no,
apologies.
I'm not gonna be nice to you. No, I'm just kidding.
I was telling Sarah that I missed like a hefty chunk of the stream. I only got like maybe the first 30 minutes and maybe like the last 45 or so. So I missed a decent amount. But
I convinced him to just share his thoughts on the class in general, classes, or
Excellent.
hopes.
Well, I'd say
hopes for
especially
them.
the last 45 minutes. You know that there was good stuff in there.
I think it's funny that you missed a chunk, and it's still both of those time periods were pretty long.
it
Half
was a
an hour
very
in.
long stream.
It was a very long
apparently, yeah.
stream.
Yeah.
I stepped away and feeling, like, oh well, I guess I'll have to catch up on the actual YouTube.
You
video or
come back
something
and they're
later,
still
I came
there?
back and it's still going. Yeah.
That's nice.
But what I did catch was something about multiple warriors being able to shield wall together.
Yeah.
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 And that's the first time I'd heard of that. Which
Oh, okay.
it's also actually the first time I think I've ever heard of an instance of like tank synergy. Like you have tanks that multiple different kinds of tanks cover different
Yes.
bases, right? But you never hear of like tank synergy.
Yeah. I mean, the meta is really just one tank. I mean, that's the MMO thing for like since the beginning. You know? So
Yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, I've seen, because I do a lot of rating content on like World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy, stuff like that.
nice.
And I've seen a lot of DPS synergy, DPS healer synergy, healer tank synergy, but never like tank to tank
Yeah.
buddy synergy, which sounds really cool. But they only mentioned like, or at least I've only heard of the warrior like shield wall thing, and I wonder if they have any plans in mind for other tank synergies like
Oh,
that.
well, so they actually spoke directly to that, and I'm going to bring up Joppa's example because I thought it was really neat. There was only one example, but, you know, just since
It was a great example.
yeah, it was a great example, and so sorry if we lose video feed here, but it's
Oh yeah, I'm going crazy.
I know,
Everyone's
but
disputed.
the example of synergy was between the warrior and the paladin. Now, were you around for the warrior banner talk?
A little bit. I think I caught the tail end of the warrior banner talk. I
Right.
heard something about more than 3 enemies or more than 2 enemies.
Yeah,
follow
one of the
banner down.
banners. And the
Yeah.
general gist was that the banners, you know, will have a radius, and there's usually a positive effect for your allies that stand there and negative effect for your enemies. And so, but at the same time, the warriors don't have the best AoE management, right? And so the example that Joppa gave was that a paladin who's great at AoE management can actually bring everything where it needs to be under the warrior banner, so that it's, you know, nice and positioned, right? I think that's a good, like, example or whatever of how these things can work together.
I definitely don't know of any other games off the top of my head where there's tank synergy, so that sounds super interesting to me.
And it does sound like, at least when Joppa was answering the question about, like, you know, having multiple tanks being not great in a group, it's just like, it's probably not going to be the best thing, right? But at least there are ways like this that can actually make stuff feel really good in spite of potentially either having, you know, less damage or whatever. To have multiple tanks in a group, especially because Joppa also mentioned that, how do you put it? It was like, tanks aren't so helpless in Pantheon.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like they're expecting more people to play tanks, and so they have to accommodate, right?
He was also hinting at, and I didn't say it super specifically, but one of the questions in the chat in the stream was like, they said Minus asked a question that was asked, which was, why aren't there more tanks? Why don't people play tanks? And someone in chat was saying, like, because DPS is so much easier to solo with, so everybody plays DPS
Oh
so
yeah,
that they have the solo option. And Joppa did say something about how in Pantheon, you know, tanks aren't only gonna like have to be in a group; they are gonna be able to solo and stuff too, or at least more so than in what we've seen in other games before. So
Yeah.
I if they're making them more dynamic that way, also, yeah.
And I hate to bring it up again, but the LAS, and just, it gives them a lot of flexibility in this stuff. And I talked about this when I did the shaman stream, right? Is that when you're in a group, you know, you're not going to stack like 4 dots on your bar as a shaman, but when you're soloing, you feel amazing. like you can actually solo super well. And I think the same is going to apply for tanks, where, cat, where as a tank, you know, when you're soloing around, you have the freedom to put more
are you
damage
doing?
stuff on your bar, where in a group you're probably not going to. And this is where LAS really shines, right? Is because now they can make tanks perfectly fine solo, you know?
Yeah, I'm personally I'm looking forward to the idea of being able to have 2 tank warriors in the same group, and one just specialize in maybe like horn calls and banners and just run around throwing banners down all the time while the other warriors just pulling up the mobs, you know.
Oh yeah. I wonder how, like, effective that would be if you're an off-tank warrior with another warrior, and you guys are just going nuts with the banners, and maybe you load up with a lot of your damage abilities and a few banners, and you guys just try to make the most of it. It's cool.
It makes me think of the old. I wonder if it'll be like the old Diablo 2 barbarians that all just had screams on all of their bar buttons and would just run around screaming all the time.
It's a little off track, but because you could scroll, remember, through your abilities in Diablo 2.
Yeah.
So the super fast, they just like spaz out and do all of their shouts, right after another, is ingrained in my in my mind.
And you could have
just remember the barbarian running through a crowd of corpses, screaming, and bottles flying everywhere.
Were you gonna say ManOfRohan?
Oh, I was just saying, you could have a warrior. I was thinking about the regroup formation, talking about you have the reactive bonuses if people are injured or someone dies in the group, you're able to handle that along with another warrior who has onslaught. So you're able to kind of, if you can only have one formation, maybe you can take advantage of that dual formation at that time, aside from banners as well. So.
Maybe.
I think it'd be, it's going to be, I think we're going to have opportunities. It sounds like that's what they're hoping for, opportunities to try these things out and figure out if things work or not.
This definitely sounds like a case for the limited action set. Like you have one warrior who, puts these abilities on his action set, and then another warrior who puts these abilities on his action set, and now you're not the same, character anymore. Now you're doing two completely different things, as opposed to certain other games we know where you can have 100 abilities out at the same time.
I'm definitely looking forward to. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the term, like a funnel group, to basically super optimize one member of the group. So I could imagine having a couple warriors in a monk or a rogue funnel group where the banners are just trying to beef up the, one melee DPS like crazy. Maybe for some hype videos or something.
Or a dire lord full of caster DPS.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I think there's a lot of possibilities for some really fun group makeups where, it might not be optimal, but it'll be fun. Especially fun about funnel groups is just that, the idea that you can make that one person feel like the king of the world or whatever during that group session and see the highest numbers that they have ever seen, and that kind of stuff, community, etc. It's fun.
I could definitely see the appeal of just roiding up your dire lord and having them go kill everything in the dungeon, and it's basically just a rush to keep them alive long enough to make it through.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. All sorts of fun, dynamic stuff.
Well, and in this day and
what's
age,
your
I'm
main
thinking
class that you usually play?
Oh, go ahead.
I can't even see your name in my Discord.
I in all the other MMO games I've played, I've always been a healer, but I'm actually really down to try Enchanter for Pantheon.
Nice.
Cool.
2 enchanters on tonight.
Essen's going to be an enchanter. That's his.
Yeah.
He would have many words.
Terminus won't long for CC, and that's that's great. That's great.
Oh, it's the novelty, I wasn't in the EQ stage ever, so my earliest MMO access was RuneScape and World of Warcraft in the beginning. So
as a lot of people, yeah,
experienced the support role before. So
you are in for a treat, my friend.
Yeah, I've heard, from what I've seen, it all just already in Pantheon, it looks good.
Yeah. Yep. Well, anything else before we kind of start to wrap this show up? I know especially for the East Coasters, it's it's starting to get pretty late.
I'm happy. I think maybe the last thing I'd throw to you all to discuss maybe would be I do recall Joppa mentioning penalties, the downside of being the tank, that you would just have to accept that the stresses of
Yeah.
that role, the dying, things like that. Like what penalty it is for being the tank. I'm wondering, like what penalties do you think Joppa has in mind, or the team has in mind, for the other roles, right? As what he has in mind for them in the group. What's the DPS's penalty for choosing to be the DPS?
Most deaths.
Sacrificial lambs.
The lack of like any hesitation.
Yeah.
That's a great question. Great question.
You having to listen to the tanks. That's what Minus says in the. Listen to them complain about stealing aggro.
That's legit though. The first thing that comes to mind though is like a rogue with poisons, right? They have to craft their poisons.
Oh, I hope they can poison themselves. I really do.
Wow,
that would be interesting. Like you not fizzle, but I'm just thinking fizzle on some sort of weapon technique, and you actually cut yourself, and you start to hurt yourself. That'd be hilarious.
Oh yeah,
That would be
Joppa's really
hilarious.
into the old school. From what I've seen so far, the old school like tabletop like ways of doing things. I could definitely see like it'd be cheaper, rather than buying your poisons from the guild, to buy them from some black market vendor. And then sometimes you just have a chance, Sometimes you're just gonna go shank the ogre in the kidney, but then you shank your hand and you get poisoned.
I just want to turn Minus into
Love
a
it.
poison bomb and send him into a room and let him like explode poison everywhere.
So I was gonna like throw this out there just because there is an example that we can cite. And do you guys remember Unstable Mixture when that's been shown? I can't remember if it was the Fortress de Vair or.
Yeah.
Missed that one.
That's a bit on the unpredictable side. Although the problem is that the whole group pays for
So
unstable
you're just like
mixture.
running to a camp and all of a sudden everyone explodes. That would be
like-
hilarious.
Oh no! Like,
Yeah.
Why did the mob just fear into more mobs? The rogue's like,
Well,
oh.
I think
I want extreme unpredictability in my game. Please give that to me. People will be so mad and I will be so happy.
I think we live in an age where people kind of have come to expect perfect equality or equity in games, especially. I won't speak at any larger political or anything way. Just in games, let's keep it there.
Pulling out my HR emoji.
But
Yeah.
people think, oh well, I should be able to do all these things just because I'm playing this game. I should be able to heal myself. I should be able to go in solo. I should be able to, and I think they're really leaning into, and I shouldn't say think, they've said they are, leaning into, yes, we have differentiation, and yes, you're going to be able to die more. You're going to have to pay a higher price just because of the natural, you're in raids, you are going to take more hits. I think that was a great question to ask, because they could say, well, yeah, and some other classes are going to have it easier, but are they as fun to play for you? They're saying this is how we've made this class, and they're going to figure it out. If no one plays this class because it's not fun in testing, they're probably going to say, well, they're going to say, we want to make this fun because we want people to play our game.
Yeah.
So they're gonna make changes, I'm sure, from how they've reacted the entire time they've been developing. That I've noticed. This is just my perception, is that they make changes and they see this stuff, and they hear what's going on and they adjust. So
We have testers who have confirmed like they told them a list of problems and then problems were addressed like right away. Yeah.
Raydil brings up kind of what I was going to get at, and that the first reactions, I guess, that I saw to that comment from Joppa was exactly like what I wanted to see, which was one of like culture, a game culture, in the sense of a lot of people kind of being like, well, we're kind of used to it, and it's not really a new concept that, tank gets loot, or tank gets, a bigger cut, or, tank gets the coin split. I've seen that one a lot.
mhm.
And, providing they have these mechanisms in the game, which they probably will, it can be one of those little wholesome things about like, just the whole community ends up doing as a natural, thing that any group of humans kind of falls into. And That's
In my
like,
EQ
yeah.
guild, we had a guild bank that people put into to pay for repairs.
Yeah, and you hit right on it. What were the like after this was mentioned on the stream? The next 5 or 6 comments were people saying it's time to to send money to your tanks. So the community was reacting by saying we're going to take care of
Yeah.
the people in our groups, and
We got
obviously
it.
that won't be everyone, but I think we're a lot of us are on board with that, and those people who aren't, let's not group with them.
Right. Yep. Not in my group.
Well,
All
Slash.
ye who wish to benefit
Kick
of
from group.
society shall pay the raid tax.
oh, I mean, you're gonna feel raids more from other factors, I think, but that's a whole
right,
other
Sparrow.
topic that wasn't talked about tonight. So anyway, thanks a ton for popping in here.
Yeah.
Do I call you Moby? Is that fine?
Oh yeah, Moby's
Okay.
cool.
Yeah. Thanks
Awesome.
for popping in, Moby. Much
Thanks, Moby.
appreciated. And hopefully see you again soon.
Happy
Thanks for
to be
hanging
here,
out.
everybody. Thank you for having me. Have a good night.
Yep. Good night.
All right, guys. So I know there's a few other big ones on my list of things to check in on, but I think I'm going to throw it to our Discord and say, if you guys watching either now or the VOD later have any more thoughts, either comment on the VOD or pop into our Discord and discuss it with the community. It's a lot easier to do long form discussion when it's in text anyway.
Mhm.
And I think, it's getting pretty late. I wanted to try to make sure I could get you guys to bed at a reasonable time, especially because this went late.
Yeah, some of us are not on the West Coast, so
Yeah.
like
I will reap the benefits of this. But yeah,
Ugh,
anyway, guys.
I'm turning into a pumpkin.
Yeah, indeed. But I would say, great stream. Do we want to maybe give a rating before we go, and then we'll just say goodnight?
From what, 1 to 10?
Let's say 1 to 10.
shoot, I was going to do colors, but 1 to 10's better.
How do you do no, 1 to 10.
I'm kidding.
You can give a color too. Give a color too.
Green.
1 to 10
Green
and a
for
color,
good.
and I think that's like a personality test or something.
7 and teal.
Oh wow. Okay. I think I'm a 7 too. A green for good.
Green for good.
Yeah, lots of information that I didn't know, whether other people knew it or not. I felt better about this than the healer stream. So thank you, VR, for being more open about what you're talking about. And I think a lot of people
Redo
are
the healer
excited.
stream.
Yeah, let's redo one day. Yes, that'd be great. But or just keep working on the game and don't listen to me and you guys keep at it. Anyway, so that's it.
All right, cool.
Des, you didn't give one.
I'm saving myself for last.
Caboose.
I think I hate to like be the same as a lot of folks here, but I would say this is a solid 7 for me too. There was some new stuff. There was some non specific stuff to warriors or paladins or any of the things I was like looking forward to new info on. Like I mentioned earlier with the different encounter stuff that we need to prepare for. We didn't really touch on it, but the whole states, at setting up your group for states and state manipulation, like that's another huge one. Little things that affect tanks, but also affect everyone else, which I thought were nicely sprinkled in.
Like Titan pets for summoners?
Yeah,
sorry.
Names of the different summoner pets, a little bit about pet tanking, the possible need for that in certain situations. There was a lot there, and I'm not usually one for these kind of like really vague hypotheticals, as I'm sure you guys know, but there was more solid mechanical things that I'm actually expecting now, based on this stream. And I think that's, to me, what Parting the Veil is. It's giving more information and context, right? but also a little bit of hint of some bigger picture. And I think this one did it. Missing a few
They actually
things,
parted the
but
veil this time.
the veil has been parted. And beyond like real, like solid, I mean, like when or stuff like that. It was really good, and definitely I appreciate this one a lot more than the healer one. So yeah, 7.
Des,
And I
you
would
didn't give
say,
it a color. Thank you.
Color silver.
Oh,
Silver for the steel of the up and coming plate wearers.
Oh my. Okay.
So
okay. I'll buy it. I'll buy it. Yeah.
all right. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, both of you guys, Sarah and ManOfRohan, for co-hosting with me. And
Thanks for having me.
thank you, everybody in chat that's been here. I mean, after
Yes.
such a late stream. Thanks for all the conversation. Thanks, everybody that came on the show. But
Yes. Thanks for joining.
yeah. Until
Bye.
next time, guys. We'll
Good
see you.
evening.